So our first question is from Bree, and she says, I'm new to starting a business and feel stuck, fear, and unsure how to start. I want to start small and offer reports and readings, but I'm also an introvert. So my preference as of now would be to customize and record readings for folks rather than have live sessions. Is this sustainable? And Renee is a split definition sacral generator. She has a small split, 6-3 profile. And so here's what I want to say to you. Everything is sustainable if it's correct for you and if it's done in the right way. Now, as a 6-3, and you did not indicate your age, so I'm not sure what stage you're in that sixth line. In any case, especially if you're in those first 30 years and you're operating as a double third line, it's so important for you to experiment with what works for you, to not be afraid to get down in the mud, get dirty and see what works. Allow yourself to fail because there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback, and check out different things that work. So that's super important. I always like to say this for sixth lines and third lines because if there is conditioning in early age around making mistakes and being punished for making mistakes or not getting something, doing something and it didn't turn out the way that you would like it to have turned out, that can result in a lot of shame. And then that can shut down the experimentation process. And anybody with a 3 in their profile and also with a 6, it's like that experimentation is such a huge part of what you are. So you have to let yourself experiment. So that's the first thing I want to say to you. Now, when it comes to readings, some people prefer to pre-record readings, and that's totally fine. Also, doing reports is really great. And people can consume those things at a time that works for them. Some people also prefer pre-recorded readings. So if that is something that you respond to and that your sacral is like, yes, this is how I want to do it right now, and you totally get to change your mind about it later if you want to, then that is the correct thing to do. What I want you to be really careful about and really consider is the reason that you want to customize and record readings rather than doing live sessions, because there is some fear that you won't know how to respond, that you won't have the answers to something that they ask, because that can be a real fear. And it's really important to, especially with that 5734, like super intuitive, like super fast in the now response, like allowing yourself to respond and trusting that the right answers will come out is super important. Now, if you're not comfortable with that yet, that's okay. Start with pre-recorded and practice with people that you know, that you trust, that you feel safe around, doing readings for them and seeing what comes up, seeing what they ask you. In your variable, you have right brain, right mind. You are a deep, deep, deep well of information, and the right people will pull all of that information out of you with their questions. Relational resonance is super important here. Like who you're working with is super important. So allowing yourself, like getting to that place where you trust that you know what you have studied, that you are a well of deep information, even if you can't always access it on your own right away, the right people will pull it out of you, and you will seriously surprise yourself with what comes out of you when you allow yourself to relax into that place of trusting what you have absorbed. So again, generator, responding, trusting what feels correct for you with that 5720, like those answers will probably come very quickly. It's also conscious. And then, of course, you also want to look at some of your splits. So you're a split definition, small split. And when you have this kind of a split, your bridging gates are the number one places of conditioning for you before your undefined centers. Now, you have gate 5 is one of your bridging gates. So you have the defined ego connected to the defined G center. They're one island. And then you have the spleen, the sacral, and the root. It's a separate island. They're all defined. They're not connected to each other. And the 5, the 29, and the 10 connect them for you. So the 5, the 29, and the 10 are your biggest potential areas of conditioning. And so with the 5, there can be this feeling of not having these fixed patterns or routines or habits. And it might feel hard for you to create like a consistent focus to master a certain area. So you just want to look into, read more about those gates, really look into those gates and notice when you consider the shadows of those gates or the low expressions. Is that something that's showing up for you? Because ultimately, when you really follow your strategy and authority, your sacred response, you're going to connect with the right people that bridge your splits for you. So the other thing with bridges like this is that we can oftentimes feel like we need to overcompensate in the areas that are not defined in our design. It's almost like we feel like there's something missing. So again, with the 5, are you trying to force yourself into some kind of fixed routines because we're so conditioned to say you have to have these very specific routines and you gotta, all this kind of stuff, and then that's throwing you off and draining your energy because it's not aligned for you. So that's one thing to look at. And then, of course, 10 is the behavior of the self. And both the 57 and the 34 connect to the 10. So there might be an aspect that feels like you're not, like you don't trust using your powerful energy in the 34. You don't trust like your intuition and how to behave around that in the now. So again, that could be that fear that if you're live with somebody versus pre-planning everything, that you won't know how to behave. That is a potential shadow of having that 10 as a bridging gate. And again, you are so going to have, like, you're going to get that connection from the right people. They're going to pull it out of you. And then, of course, with 29, this is about perseverance and commitment. So do you struggle with making a commitment? Is part of the reason maybe that you don't want to be doing live readings, like you don't want to maybe commit to the schedule. And it's interesting, having the 5 and the 29 as bridging gates is kind of an interesting little conundrum. Like maybe you don't want to commit to a specific schedule because the 15 does not want to do that, and following the extremes of rhythm in the 15 is really important. But then are you taking that to an extreme where you're unwilling to commit to anything that requires you to be on any kind of schedule, including doing live readings? Also, this can show up as like giving up too easily. So that's another one that you might want to look at. Is there an element, or have you noticed in your past that there are things that maybe you commit to and then you give up? Um, so right timing is like important here. And really, whenever you do commit to something, really following your strategy and authority, really feeling into that sacral response, like, is this a yes for me right now? Is this a no for me? And then also knowing what you really have the ability to concentrate on. So again, with the 52-9, that ability to really concentrate. And that might be something that will be very powerful for you if you are, pre-recording readings and getting into that place of concentration. However, that can also really come out of you when you're with other people and concentrating in that way. So remember, anytime you have bridging gates in your design, you will, when you're in alignment, when you're following your strategy and authority, you will connect with the right people. As somebody with your variable, your relational resonance is super, super important for you. So it's actually really healthy to be with people while also making sure, you get to take your alone time as well. You don't have to be with people all of the time. But how you interact and relate with people is definitely a really important element in you fulfilling your potential. So I'm going to check the chat now and see what we've got happening. Got some 6 lines here. Okay. And then Bree said, I feel exactly the same. I wish I had known all this back then. Valid, my motivation to avoid one-on-ones is because my career, human resources, is super people focused and I'm an introvert. So I get really burnt out. Yes. Okay. That totally makes sense. Then, ooh, this is so enlightening and you're spot on. I always blame my ADHD for what you're describing. I hadn't considered my gates and channels having that impact along with conditioning. This was big for me, I think, because I was good at picking up and figuring things out from a young age. I developed that I always have to know and I always have to get it right. I'm trying to experiment more and see it all as data and direction, not wrong, right. I'm so glad that you named this because this is so important. And I think this comes up for so many of us. Also, this shows up in a lot of different ways, having an undefined ajna, like the need to feel certain about something, having a first line in your design. I have that. And I was like, oh my God, like, what if I'm wrong? Or what if I get it wrong? Or what if I don't know the answer? So that can show up also for a lot of first lines, or, say the fear of gate 48, the fear of inadequacy. So that's another big one. Like, this is something that really shows up for all of us. So I'm really glad that you named it. And then the last thing, oh my God, yes, I literally reject making commitments because I tend to feel resentful as soon as I've committed and then I give up. You are very, very welcome, Bree. Yeah. So just remember, like, ultimately coming back into really connecting to your inner authority when making commitments, when making decisions, when deciding what steps to take into your business is what will lead you in the right direction. And I know it's so cliche to say in human design, just follow your strategy and authority. And of course, if it was as easily done as it was said, we would all be doing it from the second we found out about strategy and authority. But the truth is, this is a process that you develop over time. It's almost like a skill because we can be so disconnected from our bodies that actually coming back into the present moment and feeling what's going on, especially for gate 57 and splenic authority, like, I mean, really for all of us to feel our authority, but with this type of an authority, being really present to know, yes, I have the energy for this, or no, I do not. And then honoring that is really important. Okay, and then Brandy said, totally agree with the assessment of the 52-9. I'm so jealous. I had the 52, but not the 9. Brandy, I have the 9. Let's get together and concentrate. And it's definitely a pain point for me, but I can see you really zeroing in on the moment with your client. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'll give you my 9 if you give me your 52. All right, you guys, we're gonna move on to Lalina. I hope I pronounced that right. I copied and pasted the name, so. Okay, my content educates and resonates. Hold on, actually, sorry, okay, Lilina is here, I do see that. Before I go on with Lilina, do you have any other questions, Bree? I'm sorry, I didn't ask. I know you left commentary. Do you have any other questions? Otherwise, I am going to move on. And I know, Lilina, you're here, so you can definitely, okay, great, Bree. You can definitely ask questions. Okay, and Lilina, did I see your name right? I hope I got that right. My content educates and resonates, but it doesn't consistently convert into DMs or sessions. What is the simplest structure you recommend to move from attention to conversation to booked sessions without pushing? And how can I tell whether the real issue is my messaging, my offer, or my call to action? I want to create community. I want to position myself as a human design expert. And I also want to create from enjoyment, not from money pressure or constantly proving myself. Thank you so much, Lilina, for naming this also honestly. So we have a split definition 4-6 projector. And we have the head, the ajna, the throat, and the G center connected. And then we also have the spleen and the ego center connected, but they're not connected to each other. We have 3 bridging gates here. We have the 16, the 45, and the 25. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. And before I get into that, I want to go really into the big picture of this again, because when we're talking about business, especially as we're moving into the new era of 2027, the old era was very much about logic, about formulas, about very specific strategies, about like, hey, if I duplicate the strategy that somebody else did that worked for them, it'll probably work for me. And that did work for a little while. And in the new era, it's really about like frequency first and alignment. And when we go through the deconditioning process, and for you, Lilina, in your bridging gates, again, for you, the biggest deconditioning areas are going to be 45, 25, and 16. And I'm going to say probably 45 is going to be your biggest one because your north nodes are in 21. So I'm going to share about that a little bit more, but I want you to really look at gate 45 and notice, where are you trying to potentially overcompensate for something that you feel is missing? Because here's what happens with bridging gates. So I also have a small split. Those gates, when I learned about this, and I was like, oh, this explains so much. We feel, because we have these two different areas of our design that are not connected, they're not talking to each other. We feel like there's something missing and we try to overcompensate for it. And one of the things I see with the 45, right? And you are a 4-6, of course you want to create community. Gate 45 is gathering together. 2145 is a manifested channel. 21 is about control. So where are you potentially trying to exert too much control to gather community together to potentially make up for that 45 that you don't have to find in your design that bridges your split? And I want to remind all of you guys, and I'm teaching a whole workshop on this on next Wednesday. But the workshop will be about profiting from your human design, but we're going to talk more about what I'm going to name right now. Anything that is undefined in your design, whether it is a gate, a channel, or a center, is where you're prone to most conditioning. And it's also where you have access to the most wisdom, because that part of your design you have infinite access to. Whatever is defined in your design is very consistent, and you experience it in a very consistent way. It can still operate in a healthy and unhealthy way, but it's still going to be consistent for you. If it's undefined and it's a bridging gate, this is one of your biggest sources of potential wisdom. And the way that conditioning turns into wisdom is when you follow your strategy and authority. Because your mind is like the spokesperson for your conditioning. Your mind is going to be like, you have to do this, you have to like create community, you have to gather people together, like everything in the 45, like your mind is going to try to tell you, you need to do this, and you have to exert control over it with the 21. And that overrides your strategy and your authority. So you're splenic, so you know right in the moment if something is correct for you or not. So I want to call that out. The other thing, of course, I mean, you have the 63-4, that's logic. Like that's a logical stream. Like that's about, coming up with formulas to help ease the doubts that the collective feels. This is in the connects the head and ajna center. And the thing about logic, of course, you also have the 48 and you have the 18 and you have the 42, like you have a lot of logic in your design. And what can happen with logic? This energy is for the collective. It's about sharing what you learned to help create a better future for the collective. When logic circuitry is functioning in an unhealthy way is when we turn it in on ourselves, and especially when we're looking at definition in the head and ajna center, is when we try to use it to figure out our own lives. Your mind is actually not for you. Your mind is where you deliver your wisdom to other people. And noticing when you're turning that logical energy in on yourself, when you're trying to figure out your life with your brilliantly logical mind that is meant to share and support others, it's going to throw you off actually following your authority. And the 4 Wands formulas, the 4 Wands formula, it's about formalization. And this is the beginning of the scientific method. You have some doubts, you're going to figure out some formulas, and you're going to create some hypotheses, and eventually you're going to test them. But you don't want to try to figure out those formulas to make your own life work, because there is no one formula. And whatever the formula is, you're going to be the one to figure out what your formula is. It's completely based on your design. It's totally unique. Nobody else has your design. And the way you figure it out is by following your strategy and authority, not by using logic. And I know this, I also have the 1762. So I also have logically defined mind. Like it's really easy to try to use that energy for yourself, but really it's your gift for others. So that's like one of the big things I want to say to you, because when you say the simplest structure to move from attention to conversation to book sessions without pushing, that's going to look really different for different people. And you can even have somebody with the same design or a very similar design as you, and that structure is going to look very different. So I want you to really start noticing when you are considering, this also goes like your messaging, your offer, and your CTA. Like when you're really anchored into your body and you're trusting your inner authority and you're doing the deconditioning work, which is a lifelong thing because we're constantly being conditioned, the correct messaging, the right offer for you, the right calls to action are naturally going to emerge. And they are going to speak to the people that are your fractal, the people that need to like receive what you have to offer in the way that only you can offer it. So it means there is no competition because nobody else, even if you're in the exact same industry with the exact same niche, talking to the exact same people, nobody can offer it in the way that you offer it. And your people need to hear it from you. And the way that they recognize that you're the one for them is when you're really expressing your authentic self, like in the purest way. And that requires deconditioning. And that deconditioning does take time. It's not an overnight process. It's not something that we can just will ourselves into. It's like, okay, well, now I know this about my bridging gauge, so I'm deconditioned. My life would have been so much easier if that's how it worked. So what I want to say to you, to answer this question, is really like look into those conditioning gates. Also with gate 16, like, is there some part of you that is worried that you don't have the skills, that you're somehow missing a skill and that you need to study more or like understand better, even when it comes to marketing and, like, is that part there somewhere? With the gate 48, you have it defined on a defined spleen. Is there a fear of inadequacy? And that shows up with a hanging 48, the fear that you don't have the skills. And the thing is, anybody with gate 48, like anybody, like this is the well, this is depth. Like if you have gate 48 defined in your design, you have it at least twice. Yeah, it looks like you have it twice. That's what I'm seeing. You've got depth. Like you have that depth. And with the bridging gates, you're designed to collaborate with other people. And that doesn't mean you have to form an official business partnership, but you collaborating with others, even like with your clients and connecting with people, you're naturally going to attract the right people when you're really like broadcasting what you have defined in your design in a very healthy frequency. So now the same goes with platforms, making sure that you're on platforms that you feel really good about, that you are marketing and sharing your message in an area that feels correct and aligned, not because this is the platform that everybody's supposed to be marketing on and you need to share on it this many times per day in order to succeed. Nope, none of that. Really focus on what is aligned for you. And then with that 1-8, like really allowing yourself to express from the depth of your identity. And I do want to say without 1-8 also, anytime you see the G center directly connected to the throat, people that speak, you're speaking from the depth of your being. And there can also be an element of, if in the past, somebody has criticized you for what you say, anytime in your life, it feels extra, like being criticized is hard for anybody. But if you have a direct G to throat connection and you're speaking from the very center of your being, if somebody criticizes you for what you say, like that can really shut you down and then keep you from like really expressing your true authentic self. So that's another one I want you to look at, because if you are creating your message in some way that you think feels safe to you and it's not actually coming from the very center of your being, and of course with the 4323, this is like this individual energy that really like you have something to share that is going to mutate people. That is what individual energy is. Of course, it is projected energy. You do want to make sure you're sharing it with the right people at the right time. But there is that fear of rejection in the 43, that your ideas might be too weird. So that could be stopping you or having you water down your message. Then again, that whole 1-8, that if you've been criticized before, that could have you watering down your message. So I'm going on tangents because this is what happens. Because here's the thing that's really important for everybody. We all water down our message sometimes because we're afraid. And that fear can show up in a number of different ways. And if we're watering down our message and we're not expressing our true authentic self, especially as we move into the new era, we're all becoming more sensitive to frequencies, and people can feel something is off subtly, right? And they might not be able to pinpoint what the problem is, but something seems off because you're not expressing like what your actual truth is. And then when people sense that, then they're not interested in buying or going further. When you are expressing who you truly are, your unique, authentic self, there are definitely, I guarantee you, 100%, there are going to be people that do not like it. Absolutely guaranteed. And those are not your people. When you're expressing yourself completely authentically, the people that are your people, those are the people that you actually get results for. They will recognize you and they will invite you. And I know that's really uncomfortable sometimes, like bearing your soul and sharing who you are is uncomfortable. And even when you're not in business, when you're growing, growth is uncomfortable. And I'm not saying throw yourself into like complete discomfort where you just blow out your nervous system all the time. No, you want to do little measured discomfort where you're uncomfortable. You allow yourself to feel the discomfort. You allow yourself to feel some of those fears. And then you follow your strategy and authority and you express what is correct for you to express. And it's going to still be uncomfortable the next time you do it, but it might be a little bit less uncomfortable. And eventually, at some point, you're going to get to a place where you're going to get criticized and you're going to get challenged and people might not like what you say. And that's also okay. Like when that starts to happen, that is a great sign. Like when you start getting criticized and people don't like what you have to say, that means you are really expressing who you are. This is absolute like great confirmation that you're on the right track, because that means then you're also speaking to the people that are correct for you. And no matter how you slice or dice it, there's going to be discomfort. There are going to be people that don't like you, and that is actually a good thing. It's a sign that you are on the right track. Okay. That was a very long TED talk. Okay, I'm going to go back and look at the chat. And then if you have any other questions, Lillian, definitely let me know. Okay, there's a lot of chatting. So I love it. I love that you guys are engaged. Okay, here we go. Copying strategies from others and ended up burnt out. Why, yes, I constantly feel that I'm missing something. This is very true. When you have a small split in your design, you often are going to feel like you're missing something and you're going to blame yourself for what's missing. So once you recognize the splits, once you know what your splits are and you really understand those gates very well, you can recognize faster and you're like, oh, there it is. Okay, this is so valuable. I only have 2 defined centers. Sandy, that means you have so much capacity for wisdom. I'm very excited. Okay. Oh, Nicole says you are beautiful, beautifully and wonderfully made exactly as you are. You have your own set of unique gifts that no one else has. Yes, it is important. Yes, because Carissa said, I wish I was the same design. You know what, you guys, like, this is one of the things with human design. There's always going to be like aspects of your chart where you're like, oh, I wish I had this, or wish I didn't have this, or like whatever. Like with time as you go through the deconditioning process, you'll really fall in love with your design. Every design is absolutely amazing exactly as it is. Every design has gifts and strengths and contributions that only they can do in their unique way, and that is so needed. Some people's designs are very like condensed, like the power is very condensed in maybe a few defined centers that they broadcast and all this openness for wisdom. And then other people are maybe very heavily defined and impact a lot through the definition. It's none is better or worse. It's all just different. And I think that a lot of times when we look at human design, we only look at what's defined. And that's only part of the equation, because every single thing that is in the body graph, every single gate, every center, every channel, like all of it is in your body graph. Like you don't see any body graphs where, oh, well, there's no emotional solar plexus on this one at all because you don't have it. Like you have it, it just operates differently. Is it consistent and you're broadcasting it out all of the time? Or is it an area where you're taking it in and you are gaining wisdom all of the time? That's the only difference. So you can think about nature or nurture. Some of it is your nature and some of it is your nurture. Okay, and then Lena also said, I needed to hear this. This makes me so happy because this is something I've been debating. I just wanted to communicate and develop my own strategy. Yes, exactly. You are going to have your own strategy. And then there's a fear. I continue to get educated, taking courses, reading more, and don't actually execute. Sometimes I feel like I'm sabotaging myself at that. Yes, this is so beautifully recognized because we all do this in some way or another, but especially like if you have gate 48, also often with gate 24, if you have a 1 or a lot of like in your profile or in it shows up a lot in your design is that we're like, I just need more information. I just need to know more and then I'll be ready. And the thing is, then you'll never be ready because there's always more to know. And the really beautiful thing is like you can offer so much value to somebody with what you know right now. And you're going to continue to learn. And then you'll offer more value in a different way with what you've learned. Like I'm always continuing to learn. I'm literally in a 2-year program. Like I'm in the middle of a 1-year program that I'm finishing up in May, and then I'm already committed to another 2-year program in human design. Like always learning. I will never stop. There's always more to learn. But the stuff that you know now is going to be really supportive to somebody. And the way you deliver it is going to be really supportive for the right people. So I want you guys all to remember that, like, if you wait to start, if you wait to actually make moves in your business until you think you know enough, you're never going to do it. So just keep that in mind. And this is when we have to come back into our inner authority and to trust the timing. That our authority will let us know it's time now. Even though I'm scared, even though I don't feel like I know enough, it is time now, and you will continue to learn. This is a good reminder. We're often trying to follow marketing frameworks and strategies that may not align for us. Exactly. And then yes, fear of rejection gets me every time. I show up on social media. I start very strongly, but when I'm going to sell, that's when I fall and shut down if nobody answers to my offer. The good thing is that I'm one of those people that loves to share unpopular opinions. Okay, well that is very good. It's good to love the sharing of the unpopular opinions. Not afraid of that. Yeah, and the thing with the selling, I mean, selling is also a skill that we have to develop, and sometimes we have to really reframe how we view selling because selling has gotten a bad rap. You know, you think about like the used car salesman or somebody trying to sell you something you don't really need. But really, when you have an offer that you really love, that is like an expression of who you are, that really supports people, all that's happening with selling is you're letting somebody know like, hey, I have this available. And then if they are like, yes, I want this, then you exchange value for value. So you provide value in the form of delivering your offer, and they provide value in the form of paying you money. That's really all it is. But I know there's so much deconditioning to be done around selling. Okay. And then we have Vanny, who says 4-6 with hanging 48 and bridge 16. By the way, you guys, I have that 16 for you. I don't have the 48, but I've got the 16. Just don't download it, take what everyone teaches, and then do it your own way, and don't ever plan it, try it. Yes, absolutely. All right. And then Sabina, I love having a look at my hanging gates to see what gates will bridge my 2 sets of divine center split definition. I take it bridging a split through the G to throat is a vulnerable, delicate bridge to make to another bridge. To make to not would be easier to handle. I'm not sure what you're saying here. Yes, all our voices are needed to move us higher. I completely agree. Okay, anything else, Lilina, before I move on to the next one? Okay, you're very, very welcome. Okay, so moving on to Victoria. I feel burned out and stuck. Regardless of what actions I take in my business, it's the same pattern of getting a response and following that expansion to begin, putting in an enormous amount of work into whatever it is with the future success of it driving my fuel only to hit walls, tech issues, and then stop. Tech issues and then stop signs along my path that are insurmountable no matter how hard. I'm gonna reread this from the beginning because I know Kit just likes to clip some of these and record them. So I'm gonna start over. Okay, I feel burned out and stuck regardless of what actions I take in my business. It's the same pattern of getting a response and following that expansion to begin, putting in an enormous amount of work into whatever it is with the future success of it driving as my fuel. Only to hit walls, tech issues, and then stop signs along my path that are insurmountable no matter how hard I try to overcome them. This past year, I had a plan of offering reading reports to preserve my energy due to medical issues affecting my life force, and all these ridiculous tech issues kept happening, keeping me stuck from launching until I felt so overwhelmed and depleted, I just gave up. Okay, we have a single definition, sacral generator here with the 2750 and the 2838. And so one of the first things I want to say with technology, like I personally love technology and it is still frustrating AF. So if you don't love technology, it's potentially going to be even more frustrating when you get stuck. And as a generator, frustration is your not self theme. Now, I want to say, here's the thing with frustration. It's not like when you're frustrated with something like tech stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean it's your not self theme. If it's constantly coming up and it does seem like it's coming up a lot, then maybe this means like you don't actually have the energy yourself to be doing the tech stuff. So this is when you want to get help with that. Like if tech is not your forte, and for many people it is not, seek help with it. We have wonderful VAs that can help you with body graph. Like you could potentially, if you have friends, maybe you trade with somebody. With the tech stuff, I always recommend, like, especially when you are maybe earlier on in your business, you do want to set up some tech stuff. You want to set up some automations. And the goal of those eventually is that, it's set up and then it runs itself. And yes, every now and then you do have to do some maintenance on your tech stuff. But if you have somebody in your corner that can help you with that, that's the way to do it, especially if you already know, like, I don't like tech stuff. It's really super over the top frustration. Deal with the frustration a little bit here and there and not force yourself to work through the frustration, but maybe drop it, come back later, take a walk. Maybe you can figure it out. Now, you do have gate 3 defined. Where is it? Gate 3 is difficulty at the beginning. This is my Chiron. Oh, it's your Mercury. Yeah, gate 3, line 6. Difficulty at the beginning. I don't have this gate defined, but I have gate 60 in my conscious Earth, and gate 3 is my conscious Chiron. And I will tell you, like, difficulty at the beginning is just a normal thing for me that I've learned to just accept. So, for example, even starting the community hours, starting workshops, like the beginning for me is always difficult. Like it's not necessarily difficult for long. Sometimes it is, but it's generally difficult. And I've just learned, like, I know like the first couple of minutes are going to be, and then it's going to be fine. So I do want you to just note that. And especially with Mercury, like Mercury is about communication and also rules technological type communication and mental things. So that can show up. Now, 2-4, you do have the 2838. And so the 2838, this is, struggle. This is about fighting for purpose and meaning. And what can happen, and you also have defined several times. So the 28 is your conscious Earth. It's my unconscious Earth. So I had that in common with you. And you also have it. How many times do you have it? You have it. You have it in your Pluto as well. The 38 in Jupiter. You also have the 38 twice, at least. You also have 38 in unconscious Mercury. So you have that channel at least twice. So at least 4 placements in that channel from what I see right now. Now, what can happen with the 2838 is that when it is operating in its unhealthy expression, is it can fall into this thing about like just getting in the habit of struggling and everything is a fight. Like everything is an argument, everything is a fight. We're just in the habit of that. In its high expression is about really being able to pick your battles about what is worth fighting for that gives you meaning and purpose. So I just want you to notice, like, is it habitual for you to struggle about things that really just aren't worth it? So for example, like if you can get somebody to help you with the tech struggles, I mean, is that a struggle that's really worth your time that is going to give purpose and meaning? And if not, can you outsource it? You also said that future success as your fuel. Okay, so I want you to remember you are a generator. Your fuel is satisfaction. Um, Satisfaction is ultimately your fuel. And as we move into this new era, obviously, like we're in business to make money because businesses make a profit. That's part of being in business. And just making a profit isn't necessarily in alignment because I'm sure you can look around and see plenty of businesses that are making like a profit that are really out of alignment. In the new era, part of our currency and like our fuel is our signature theme, which for you is satisfaction. So I want you to really think about like when you're really in alignment and you're really feeling satisfied, that's when you truly thrive. And that's why, in BG5, the business application of human design, we talk about the not self theme and the signature theme as your key indicators. Okay, so if you're feeling frustrated a lot, you're not self theme, that means you're off track. If you're feeling satisfied a lot, your signature theme, that means you're on track. And if you're off track, comes back down to really following your strategy and authority and your sacral response. Like you have the 2750, I have that one too. It's super fast, like super super fast, like intuitive sacral gut sensations that let you know like, hey, I have the energy for this right now or I do not. And when it comes to putting whatever the plan is into action, like first and foremost, you want to make sure like, are you really getting a sacral response, or are there shadows that are making up stories for you in your head, right? So there's our shadows and distractions, like our mind is the spokesperson for those. And so for you, you have a completely undefined solar plexus, and you also have or completely open solar plexus. So there can be a need sometimes to do things because you don't want to feel other people's emotional waves. So you want to like check into that because other people's emotional waves can really throw you off the decision-making process when you're making decisions. And I talk about this more in the podcast episode that we just released. And me may have shared it already. If not, I will have Nicole share that now. You can be very influenced by other people's emotions when making decisions. So when you are getting responses and following that beginning, is it really a response, or is there some part of you that's like, "Ooh, if I do this and I'm successful, I'm going to make this person happy"? When we look at the ego heart center, there in the shadow expression, it feels the need to prove itself. So this is when your mind starts telling you, hey, if you do this, like it'll prove your value in some way, shape, or form. And then you do it because you think it will make you more valuable in the eyes of others, not because it was a true sacral response. Our mind is super sneaky and tricky and lets us think like, oh, yep, you responded. Yeah, your sacral said that's correct. So those are just two, like there's so much opportunity for wisdom here. And I really want to make sure that you are really understanding like what does your sacral feel like in your body? Like when you're really present, because the sacral responds in the now. What does it feel like? Does it feel expansive? Does it feel contracting? Do you actually get sacral sounds? Not everybody does. People get different ones. Some people get the good old or yep, nope, or like whatever it is. But really like noticing like what does it feel like? And it's going to be so fast. Like spleen to sacral is so fast. So being present, being in your body is like super important here. You want to be really careful that you're not responding to your own thoughts, because response comes from the outside. As generator types, anybody with a defined sacral, there are things going on outside of like around you all of the time that you're responding to. But if something is happening in your head and you're like, oh, I responded yes to that, that's not your sacral response. That's mental stuff. And if you act on that, that's actually initiating. So then you're acting like a manifester, and then that can result in a lot of frustration. So the other thing for you, so you have your unconscious sun is in gate 41. I also have gate 41 in my moon, so it's my driving force. And this is fuel that wants to have a new experience, and it can be really restless, and it just wants to jump into action because it wants to have a new experience. that is something to really pay attention to, okay? Because you have a pretty heavily defined root center, and there might be that consistent pressure to like fight for something that's meaningful and to jump into some kind of action to have some kind of experience. And if that's like driving you and getting you to start new projects when you haven't truly responded to something, then that can also like lead you down the wrong path. So being really aware of that 41, but like, am I just wanting to have a new experience? And I don't even know what the experience is because you don't have the 30, you don't have the 36, but it's like, is that where the pressure is coming from? Am I in the habit of fighting for something? And then just continuously going back into that sacred response and like recognizing what that response feels like for you. All right. So I think you're right here, Victoria. I am going to go back to the chat. Okay, Victoria's here. So helpful. I do get pretty influenced by emotional solar plexus. Yes. And yes, I need to reach out and get help with my work. Thank you. You are very welcome. And if you have anything else, Victoria, let me know before I move on. All the different designs is always so fascinating to me. Yes, you're very, very welcome. All right, Sarah. Sarah, I am trying to escape addiction and I truly embody my calling. Reiki, I just discovered Reiki because I out of nowhere received energy through my hands and I'm intrigued wanting to pursue healing, etc. However, I'm in immense pain, so I need some guidance into a modality that works for my personality to quit using and get my life back. Okay. So, thank you for sharing so openly, Sarah. I really appreciate it. And I do want to say I'm not qualified to speak on addiction. And so when we are dealing with something like this, especially, when you said you're in pain, and I'm not sure if you're in immense physical pain, and so you are taking painkillers and that's the addiction, or you're just in emotional pain and so you're numbing it. I always recommend when you're dealing with something like this is to seek out somebody that is qualified and has experience in the area that you are dealing with as far as any kind of addiction is concerned. I love that you are really called to Reiki. I also love Reiki. It's amazing. And I feel like, if you say you just received the energy through your hands, that it is just coming to you. So when it comes to modalities, including working with a professional that you resonate with. So we have another sacral generator here. Again, we have the 2838. We also have the 5432, the 2750 again, and the 3410. Working with somebody that you respond to, that you feel like, and you can, go online or look through place, ask for recommendations about who you might be able to work with. You also may want to consider, so since you are truly called to Reiki, this is obviously something you've really responded to. Can you find somebody that specializes in working with addictions and also does Reiki? Because I bet you there is somebody out there that does healing modalities that also knows how to work with addiction. So that is something that I really, really really recommend for you. So again, modalities, it's going to be something that you respond to, that you get a yes to, that you're like, oh yes, this is the right one for me. And you may have to try a few different ones. The other thing that I want to say here is there are a lot of 12-step programs out there. And now I know people have different feelings about 12-step programs. There are, some people have a lot of opinions about them. However, when we're dealing with addictions, especially like pretty serious addictions, 12-step can be incredibly helpful. It's also free and it's community-based, which as a 2-4, when you're struggling with something like an addiction, I think really for anybody struggling with addiction, having a community that supports you, that understands because they've been there, can be incredibly helpful. If you do decide to go that route, it is important to note that you need to find the correct group. Somebody that when you go in, you feel a resonance, you feel like the people that are there have done a really great job managing their own addictions. And you'll know, like, if you go into a group and it's just doesn't feel healthy, it's not the right group. So that's the other thing that I want to say to you. Again, we talked about the 2838 quite a bit in the last Victoria's chart. There is that struggle for purpose and meaning. So that could be playing a role in here as well. I know from people in my life that have dealt with addiction successfully, that actually going through that process of addiction has really been a huge gift for them in the long run because of what they learned from it. So I do want to throw that out there as well. Yeah, so I don't know if Sarah is here. That is mainly what I have to share with you specifically based on your question. So I will just see. Okay, not seen her. All right, so I will move on to Maria. I feel stuck about what is the best way and combination for me to wealth. I recently pivoted from the spiritual business world and human design to project management and operations. I guess I search for a confirmation if that's where my wealth comes from. I also push my money beliefs constantly besides that. Maybe it's also my sixth line, which makes me the late bloomer. All right, so Maria is early on the roof. And it's always interesting. She is a 6-2, and we have, is this a triple? No, it's a split. Small split. 3 bridging gates. We have the 16, the 20, and the 33. Just making sure I saw that correctly. Yes. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I want to say here. One is I cannot give you the confirmation. Only you can, because you are your own inner authority. So when it comes to knowing what the right business is for you or the right way to work, only you can truly know that. Now, we have a split definition. It's a projector here with a completely open sacral. And I know with an undefined sacral center, sometimes it's hard to know when enough is enough as far as energy being used. And of course, with completely open sacral, you're open to all the different ways, all of the different gates on the sacral center and how that energy can potentially operate. I want you to think about when it comes to wealth, there are a lot of different ways that you can describe wealth. And if you think about this from the old era perspective, the era that we're moving out of, usually it was money. Usually when we're talking about wealth, we're talking about money, and that's what people want. But the thing about money is just not either numbers on a piece of paper or an actual piece of paper with numbers on it, pretty much the same thing. It doesn't actually have any value. If you were stranded on a desert island, you had $1 million in your pocket, that wouldn't really help you very much, right? So the thing with wealth and also money specifically, it's what that represents for you. Maybe it's freedom. Maybe it is security. Maybe it's the ability to spend your time in the way that you see fit to do things that you really want to do. You want to be really clear about what is actually the wealth that you are looking for. And we already said this earlier today, your key indicators, your signature theme, which for you is success, that's also a very personal description, because when we use the word success for projectors, as your signature theme or your key indicator that you're on track, most people equate the word success with, I made it and I have a big car and a big house and I'm successful and I have a successful business. There's a very specific description that we use for the word success. However, I want you to consider the success as a projector. You are a guide, you are here, you have an ability, especially with a 6-2 projector, you can see things that other people cannot see. One, that's a projector gift. Projectors can see things others cannot see. And 2, that is a 6th-line gift. You can see way ahead to things that other people can't see. And so you have a brilliant ability to guide others' energy. And success for you is when you have been properly recognized for your unique way of doing that. And you have guided other people correctly. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't do anything in your life. You really can do anything. It's if it's aligned for you. Um, but I want you to think about, when have you felt that success, that recognition, when people really see you for who you are? Because that is, again, a projector gift, is recognition. You can truly recognize others, and the right people will truly recognize you for what you have to offer. Where do you feel truly recognized? Also, are you recognizing yourself? Are you seeing yourself? And I know for somebody with a two in their profile, it can be a little harder to really see yourself and like see your gifts. Ask the people that know you well, like, what do they recognize about you? What are the gifts they recognize about you? And notice if you can see those in yourself as well, because that's an important aspect, is like being able to recognize your true gift and the value that you add to the world. Because when you are able to recognize that, others will also see it. Um, we do want to look at some of your bridging gates again. So gate 16, this can be, again, the lack of confidence in your skills. So this is, we talked about this again today, like constantly studying or trying to learn new skills before you feel ready. Um, Gate 48 is the fear of inadequacy. And again, 48 is the well. This is really about depth. But when that fear is running the show, you might also feel like, okay, it's interesting that you said you pivoted from the spiritual business world to project management and operations. I'm wondering if you, pardon me, if you meant that the other way around, that you pivoted from project management and operations to human design. I don't know if Maria is here, but if she is, I just want to make sure we have that correctly. But I do want you to notice, like, oh, you're here. Okay, great. I would love to know, are you now doing human design in the, like, the spiritual business world, or are you now doing project management and operations? I'm just gonna wait. Okay, so you now do project management. Okay. And do you feel like with doing project management, do you feel successful? Do you feel like I mean, project management is like a great thing. You have so much logic in your design. Do you really like project management? Do you feel like that sensation of success, like you're guiding energy, you're guiding projects, you're guiding systems correctly? Because mastery of systems is also a really wonderful projector gift. And you do have quite a bit of logic in your design. So I'm curious if you love it. And the other thing, while I'm waiting for that answer, the other thing I notice about your design is all of your centers are defined unconsciously. So it feels satisfying me to optimize systems. Yeah, and that you can really see that in your design as well. With that 1762, like with the 48, the depth, the 18, the ability to correct. So if you love that, then that is really great. Uh, for you, with all of the centers are defined unconsciously, and you have an emotional authority which is also not fully conscious. So I also have this. do you are you really in tune with your emotional wave? So with that 1949, you are very gifted at sensing and being able to meet the needs of other people. um This is also very good business energy because it's tribal. It's about making sure that the tribe has everything that it needs. So this is wonderful in businesses. Businesses can be very tribal. Um, but do you recognize what emotional clarity feels like? Okay, so you do feel that. Do you recognize when you're making big decisions, if like when you have hit clarity? Because one of the things with emotional authority, especially when it's partially unconscious, is that we might think we're clear, our head gets in the way, our mind, and especially I also have the 1762, so I get it. My mind is like, oh, it's trying to logic me into or out of decisions. And whenever that happens, I know right away that's not my authority. Like, the authority is really body felt. And for clarity for me, I get to a place where I'm no longer like super over the top excited about something. I'm also not scared or terrified or like really worried. It just feels like a clear, yes, this is a correct path for me right now. And I am wondering if that is something that you're really clear on when your wave has settled and making decisions, because it sounds like you feel good about project management. You do have some difficulties with that. I kind of know where I'm at my wave, but it still makes decisions difficult. I know, isn't it funny? 55% of us have emotional authority, and it can really take some time to understand where the clarity is. I will tell you, for me, it's never a set amount of time. Different decisions, sometimes I can make the decision in a day or two, sometimes it takes weeks or months. Um, but it's kind of that feeling of like you kind of just know, and you're not super excited, you're not terrified, it's just neutral. And of course, it's going to feel different for all of us. That's how it feels for me. But I want you to start just noticing that with any decisions that you're making. And when you notice your mind coming in and your mind telling you, well, you should do this because it makes sense and it's logical and the 1762, and then you start number crunching. I am definitely at fault for that as well. Like, we start really going into all of the numbers and all of that kind of stuff. That's not your authority. So I want you to start noticing when that happens, and then just be like, okay, there it is happening. And sometimes just when you name it, it goes away. And it also is a good indicator when your mind is trying to talk you into or out of a decision, that you need more time, because you're definitely not emotionally clear. So I definitely recommend that for you. Also, being so early on the roof, it's I have a lot of six lines in my life, so I definitely have seen people when they first go on the roof and how different their life is all of a sudden. You go from this period of like experimenting and doing all the different stuff, and then all of a sudden, there's this slow, like, oh my goodness, my life is very different now. And I know that can be somewhat disorienting. So I'm wondering if, yeah, I mean, that's just something to be aware of, that might also be happening. And yeah, let me know if you have any other questions about that, because ultimately, I mean, the answer is that inside you if this is the right place of where your wealth comes from. Since you do like it and it's something that you seem to be quite good at, it could very well be. And it could also be that it is what it is for right now, and down the road, especially as you go through this roof phase, that something else might emerge. So let me know if you have any other questions before we move on. Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Oh, here we go. Okay, very precise. Thank you so much. Especially the confusion at the moment could be a 2. Yes, absolutely. All right, you are very welcome. We're going to move on to Sandy. So I've been trying for several years to become successful as a coach, counselor, and now in human design. I'm a 6-2 splenic projector, left angle cross of the Clarion, same cross as Ra. There have been a lot of health issues in the past. I've learned a lot about myself through my chart, but still, since I've just become certified as a human design practitioner, there's a lot of uncertainty regarding my capacity to run a business and not to burn out while making a difference in other people's lives, as well as being able to increase my income. I followed marketing courses in the past, but none of them seem to match who I am. And at least now I understand why. Yes, I know that's the thing, like with marketing courses, they're so like one size fits all. And, a lot of marketing teachers, meaning well, of course, think, well, this worked for me, so let me teach it to other people, because if it worked for me, it will work for them. And that is not always the case. So we have a single definition, 6-2 projector. I don't know if Sandy's here. I'm not sure how old you are, so I don't know where you are in the life phase of the 6. Okay, you're here. Are you in the first 30 years, the 30 to 50, or the past 50? So I'm just wondering where you are. Okay, so you're off the roof. Okay, let me make sure I read that correctly. Okay, great. Okay, so this is one of those really cool charts. I love seeing charts when somebody has one channel, because it's so like that's concentrated energy. And especially with that channel connecting your conscious sun in the 57. She has the 5720. This is like super fast intuition, speaking in the now when the timing is right. So it's splenic, which means it is fast. It is so intuitive. The 57 is the most intuitive gate in the entire design. It's also very acoustic. It's individual energy, which tends to be very acoustic and very sensitive to sound. And this spleen is fascinating because it is incredibly defined. So I do want to address all of the fears in the spleen. Now, anytime we are starting a business, and especially when we're early certified, there's going to be that uncertainty about things, including running a business, because running a business, like it does require some capacity. And this is a classic projector. So what that means is there are no motors defined in this chart. So no root, no sacral, obviously no projectors have sacrals defined, but also no ego willpower, no solar plexus. And that means that a lot of times classic projectors is what we think of like they just don't have as much energy because they're not generating their own energy. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have access to energy, because you do. You're just usually amplifying energy from other people. So it's super important for you to recognize like when you do need to take some rest and restoration. And I just want to say that it doesn't mean you're laying around doing nothing, although it can mean that. If you feel like you're tired and you want to take a nap, and I know this is like such a cliche thing, just take a nap. If that feels like it's what's restorative for you in the moment, then I encourage you to do that. But it can also be like taking some rest time and some downtime is just engaging in things that you feel are really nourishing. And that could look like going for a walk or going for a swim or reading a book, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you are allowing yourself that. And I know there can be a lot of conditioning around doing, just downtime. So I just want to make sure that you're honoring that. Now, here's the thing with projectors. When they are on, they are incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for? Productive is kind of a cliche word, but you can basically get twice the stuff done in half the time when you're really on, as a projector. So just know that like if you're honoring your energy and you're allowing yourself to do the work when that energy is there, you can get a lot done in like half the time. Now, you do say you have a lot of health issues in the past, so there can be some fears around the capacity to run a business and not burn out while making a difference in other people's lives. As a 6-2 off the roof projector, like with this incarnation cross, you have tremendous capability of really making a difference in other people's lives, and it does not, and increasing your income, and it does not mean that you need to be working like super crazy hours and burning yourself out and not honoring your own energy. So I do want to say that. I am also wondering if there are some fears around, you said you just become certified as a human design practitioner. Are there some parts of you that are actually afraid of just sharing human design with people? So you have with gate 48, that is the fear of inadequacy. Okay, so that can be that fear like, I don't know enough yet, so I can't do it yet. 57, fear of the future or the unknown. So there can be that fear of like, oh no, like, what am I getting myself into? Gate 50, this is the fear of responsibility. So if you run a business, because here's the other thing, you can run a business and hire people, right? And when you're doing that and you're running a business where you're really focusing on your zone of genius and letting everybody else take care of the stuff that's not your zone of genius, that's also a really great way to conserve your energy. However, you're going to be a boss, and then you might feel responsible for other people, and that fear could also be stopping you. I'm just going to go over these fears and then I'll check the chat because I see that Sandy is responding. Then we have gate 32. This is the fear of failure. That's a big one. It can also show up as the fear of success. So that's always an interesting one to look at. And we have the 28, which is the fear of purposelessness. Like what's even the point? So let me just check in really quickly here with what Sandy's saying, because I did say that you're here. And my mouse is doing really weird things right now. Here we go. Okay. Um, I swear I know how to use a computer, but apparently my mouse is not wanting to go on the chat. Here we go. All right. Okay. So I fell on the roof to off with like starting perimenopause. Oh my God, yes. Versus feeling grounded through menopause. Okay, I love that, Vanny. I'm dealing with that transition right now. So I think it's a really good analogy. Okay. Um, So we have a lot of conversation about being on the roof. Yes, I wish I had known about human design when I was on the roof. I thought I was losing my mind. I was unrecognizable to myself. Now it all makes sense. Yeah, I know whenever I see 6 lines, I'm like, oh, this is important to know. So Sandy said, yes, I've stopped pushing the boulder up the hill. Good. And then Vanny said, oh my goodness, so interesting how many 6 line and gate 40 themes today. Yes, there is a lot of that. And then Sandy says, I've started doing some free readings for people I know. And also the gate of shock. Yes, of course, the gate of shock. So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because the gate of shock, it's not technically a fear gate, but I would imagine, I don't have this one, I don't have anything in this channel, that especially with a completely open solar plexus, right? Completely open gate of shock in your conscious earth, this is like your grounding balance. Like sometimes you're going to say things in a way that is shocking to people. And people might not always like it. You're picking up people's emotions all the time in your completely open solar plexus. So that can also be one of those things where, like, are you holding back somehow? Because for you, the completely open solar plexus is one of your biggest areas of conditioning. And then also the ego center, which can have the need to prove itself in some way. So there are definitely some things to look into here. I'm glad that you're doing some free readings for people that you know, because you do want to, like, it's such a great way to build confidence when you're starting out in human design, is reading for people that you know. When you see them kind of light up like, oh, I wish I had known this, or I already knew this about myself, and this is like so validating and so confirming, it really helps your confidence grow as a reader, so that then you can start putting yourself out there. Don't fall into that trap for too long, though. Okay, because if we are doing, oh wow, okay, great resilience, I've died. So 3 near-death experiences. I'm assuming when you say there's also great resilience, I've died 3 times, that you've had 3 near-death experiences. That's also something really interesting to explore, because you can do like a near-death experience chart reading. It's actually a really fascinating reading. Usually when you go through those kinds of experiences, there are really big, I mean, your chart is always going to be your chart, but there is going to be aspects imprinted when that experience took place that it's really fascinating to know more about. So yeah, lots of resilience, and it sounds like your gate of shock has showed up literally. I know sometimes for people it does not show up as literally, but in your case it looks like it has. But going back to the readings, doing the free readings as you gain confidence, but not getting stuck there and doing them for too long, especially with the gate 48, with that potential fear of inadequacy. If you get stuck there too long, like at some point you need to start charging people. And with the 5720, and that level, like that intuitive sense and your ability to truly see. So again, we have a projector and a 6-line projector, like your ability to see what other people can't see. I bet your readings are absolutely like incredibly, incredibly powerful. So while I think it's a great idea to spend a little bit of time getting the confidence by doing free readings, you don't want to stay there for too long. Let me know, since you're here, Sandy, if you have any other like specific questions. I know you mentioned that you have followed marketing courses and they don't match who you are. When it comes to marketing, you're just sharing about your experience, like you're talking about what you really love and letting people know. Finding the right platforms for you. I would guess with the 5720, you are really good at speaking intuitively in the now. So even, when something comes through for you to share, recording it, whether you just record a quick video or a voice note and then sharing it. Okay, good. Not planning on doing free readings for too long. Good, good. So for the marketing, if you have any specific marketing questions, let me know. But I would guess based on your design, your ability to like share your voice and share your intuition um, through speaking, also potentially through writing, is going to be a really great way for you. And when something comes through for you, also with, you have to get 61, like inner truth, like truth just coming through, either speak it into your phone, into like a voice note recording, or, write it down, maybe make a video right away and then share it when it feels aligned to share. But I think that, based on what I'm seeing here, that looks like it would be potentially a really great way for you to market. And then I'm also curious, what is it that you generally like get recognized for? What is it that people are always asking you about? Is there a specific aspect of human design that you love to talk about? Is there a specific way that you help people with human design? So these are all just things to consider both in your marketing and also into really like narrowing how you use human design to help people. And I would love to hear um, if you have a specific niche in human design, if you are doing general human design, what types of clients you like working with. I do realize that we are about 9 minutes before this finishes. So rather than jumping into a new one, I'm going to stay with Sandy for a little bit, and then anybody that's here can ask more questions as well. So Sandy says it's more about serving than making money. Yes, lots of voice notes. I really like variables. Variables is such a fascinating way. And as we move into the new era, like Ross said himself about variables, he said, like, 30 years from now, and I don't know how long ago he said this, but I wonder if it was 30 years ago, but he said, like, people are going to likely, he thought, like the information and the knowledge of variables is actually going to become more relevant than the actual body graph. So there is really a lot of potential of working specifically with variables and helping people with variable. I Lots of voice notes. That's really good. I'm curious where you are posting them and where you are sharing about your work. And if you've started doing that yet, or I know you said you've been taking the marketing courses. And was that more with the intention of marketing something eventually, or are you already marketing it? Not sharing yet. Okay, so doing readings, gaining experience, and living according to my design. And that is, you know what? That's the best place to start, is to really get in alignment. And about it as you're running a business is going to be an important part to let people know, hey, here's what I got. You look like you have a lot of second lines in some important places because your unconscious sun and earth and all four of your nodes are second lines. I've never seen somebody with the same line in all of their nodes. So natural talent is definitely like a big thing in your design. And you probably will also get people coming to you that have natural talents that maybe they aren't able to see in themselves, that you will help pull out of them with your human design. So that's just one thing to note. As far as like who you can be working with, I also see some good business energy in here. Your conscious north node is gate 32, so people might be really looking to you to help them either overcome their fear of failure, or to really like create growth and continuity in their business. So business human design might be up your alley if that feels like the right fit for you, but I know your splenic authority will let you know right away. I do recommend starting to really consider where you want to share about human design. Do you want to do video? Do you want to maybe do YouTube? What types of platforms are you already hanging out in, even if you're not using them to share? Because, and this is, for all of us, like if you have certain platforms that you like to hang out on a lot, that's probably also going to be the place where you're going to do the best sharing about your work. It doesn't necessarily need to be an online platform. This can also look like networking in person, one-on-one, Word to mouth is literally like the best marketing that you can do. When you have clients, and Sandy, in your case right now, the people that you're reading for, when they're like, wow, this was amazing, and they tell other people about it, there is no better marketing than that, because you're much more likely to get a service from somebody that you've gotten a great recommendation for than just something that you randomly see online. Doesn't mean that online marketing isn't also great, but word of mouth is always going to be king. So on Instagram and Facebook, absolutely lovely. Okay, that's good, and especially if you like those platforms, those are, Instagram is a great place to talk about things like, doing face to cam reels and doing stories and like letting people know, maybe starting to sprinkle in your stories what you're doing. And then Facebook is also great. One of the things I love about Facebook, oh, this is actually a perfect segue. One of the things I love about Facebook are Facebook communities, Facebook groups. It's a great way to connect with people, and even practice sharing, provided it's allowed, of course, and how you share, as long as it feels authentic and true to you. Uh, Facebook groups can be really great for that. And speaking of Facebook groups, we have one. Bodygraph has a Facebook group. So if you're not in there already, we would love to have you join us in there as well. And next week, oh, good. Okay. And then Sandy says, I don't succumb to the pressure of posting daily. Good. Because that is super, like, when you're posting in alignment, when you, especially with that 57-20, like when the time is right for you and you really have something to share and it comes out naturally, that's perfect. The pressure of like posting every day or 3 times a day, or, being on a consistent schedule, if it's not aligned for you, and for many people it is not, then it's just not going to feel congruent. So, and that is what I have for you. If you have any more questions, Sandy, we've got a couple of minutes left. And then next Wednesday, we do have the workshop on how to profit from your human design. Check out the podcast episode that we just posted today, because it's kind of like a little intro that I'm going to be going much deeper into in that workshop. Our next community hours is in 2 weeks from today, so I will be continuing to answer questions on that one. And yeah, thank you guys all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna stop the screen share now. If anybody else has anything else that they want to share about, or they have any questions or anything like that, let me know. My computer is doing slightly weird things. So it's always nice to see people's faces. I know for a while we weren't able to do that, so it's lovely to see you guys. You are very welcome. I haven't checked. We might, if you haven't asked your question yet and you have a question, we'll probably keep the forum open for a couple more days. I haven't checked it lately to see how many questions we got, but if you have a question, you haven't asked it yet, the email from Bodygraph should be going out at some point, the one that has all of the information on it. So if the forum is still open, go ahead and ask your question. And everyone's questions that I have, there will be more in 2 weeks, and even more in the first week or the second week of March. We will definitely let you know. And hold on, let me just look at the chat, because I know some stuff has come up. Small existential crisis, but in the best possible way. Yes, we love that. You're very welcome. Thank you. Okay, I'm not. Nicole is also having mouse problems, so might just be Microsoft Teams and not me. What if you don't have just one gate to bridge your splits? Do you look at full channels? Yes. Okay, this is a great question. So Tracy asked this. So when you have splits, you can have a small split, which means it takes only a gate to bridge your split. You may have several bridging gates, or you may only have one, but only one gate bridges your split. If you have a wide split, it takes 2 gates. So it could either be an entire channel, or, one gate at the bottom of a center, one gate at the top of a center. Again, there could be multiple ways to bridge your split. And then there's also a very wide split, which takes more than 2 gates. So it's usually a channel and another gate. They all show up slightly differently. I'll definitely be talking more about those when we see them. Usually, like, small splits are more common, but they show up a little bit differently. So if you do have like a channel that bridges your split, or you have a wide split, Just, kind of look through your chart and look at all of the different ways that your bridges could be split, and then look into those gates that bridge your split and just notice how those have been showing up for you. All right, you guys, so that is what we have for you today. Thank you again so much for being here. Really appreciate you guys, and we will see you soon.